Morning to one and all of you, and welcome to the inaugural edition of the Economic Times Virtual Tech Summit. And I am Ganguly. On behalf of Team ET Edge, I welcome you to all to this session on the business impact of COVID-19, where we're looking at how things are going to be restructured, renewed, and reworked. Now, it goes without saying that the COVID-19 pandemic has hit businesses hard across the globe. But looking to the future, how can we restructure and what will the future look like? The road ahead will be outlined for us by our eminent panel members today. We have with us Aditya Ghosh, who's a board member at Oyo Hotels and Homes, Ajay Kapur, the CEO, Aluminium and Power at Vedanta. We have Sarbvir Singh with us, CEO of PolicyBazaar. We have Robert Ford, the CEO of the Ford Consultancy Group. Joining him is also Abhishek Ganguly, the General Manager of PUMA India and SEA. Piyush Singh, Senior Managing Director and Market Unit Lead for India at Accenture. And discussions will be steered and moderated by Ryan Patel, who is the Board Director and Senior Fellow at the Drucker School of Management at Claremont Graduate University. Gentlemen, over to you to steer discussions.
Well, thank you for that. Well, welcome everybody. We're excited. We've got some great panelists, and we're just going to jump into it, and we're going to try to do some rapid fire questions too at the end. So hopefully everyone has a great time. And before I get to the first question, I think we all share the ability that we all are together in this pandemic. We are together stronger, and I'm glad to see that everyone's here to be able to share their thoughts, share their industry knowledge, for everyone to hopefully come out through this to the other side. So I will start. First, Aditya, I'll ask you the question, and I think then we're going to go down the line so we get everyone's perspective, because we got so many different industries here in this panel. So I want everyone to hear. But what do you think is been the most impactful in your industry, and what do you see in the current environment right now?
The travel and the hospitality business is the one which has been the most impacted right away, and whether it's the hotels business, which I'm involved in today, or the airline business, which I was involved in for the last 15 years, everything has just completely gone down to a zero, other than some relief efforts happening, repatriating stuck passengers, or accommodating COVID patients in some of our hotels across the world, or for that matter, providing cargo flights, etc. But I also believe that what we are seeing today is because of an artificial restriction, right? I mean, because there is a lockdown, planes are not allowed to fly, hotels are not allowed to open, restaurants are not allowed to operate. You're seeing an artificial restriction as opposed to the fundamental need of the consumer disappearing. So what that basically tells me is that, yes, while the world will change, but travel as such remains as a fundamental need. But what's probably likely to happen, and this is from my past experience as well, that once things start opening up, the affordable segment of the market, whether it is in the airline space, whether it is in the hotel space or the restaurant space, it's the affordable segment of the market, or for that matter, any other industry, will lead the recovery, because people will still need to satisfy that fundamental need, but they will also have a very strong tendency to conserve cash. So the need will still be there. How companies deliver that in the most cost-efficient way to be able to, grow profitably, as well as to be able to offer that product or service at a more affordable price point than before, is what's going to make the difference between the successes and failures coming out of this.
That's great. And Piyush, I think you're next. Go ahead, chime in.
Okay, if I add to that, I think I agree with that. And Brian, look, we've got the dual hat of advising our clients across sectors as well as our sector itself. And I think it's fair to say that, whilst the immediate consumer demand effect is more severe on some sectors, every sector is disrupted, either in the short term or in the long term. I agree with Aditya's point, which is business models are going to be challenged and will have to be reworked. So, but the one thing I would say is I see a trend that in every sector, there will be three groupings of organizations that will emerge. Those that will come onto the other side, we're still commanding a level of trust of the consumer, having a sufficient level of capital backing, and an underlying micro infrastructure which has allowed them to predict their future much more reasonably. There'll be a second bucket, which will be slightly suspect bucket, not unsure, and there will be some that will be staring at existence, right? So, and the responses will have to be very different. If you come to specifically our industry, of course, we are having to reinvent quite rapidly as well. Our consulting organizations used to having proximity to their clients to be able to advise. In today's world, we advise entirely on the basis of data models and not hypotheses. So therefore, to stimulate new data models in unprecedented environments is a rapid change that we're having to undergo. On the other hand, as an IT services organization and with a massive footprint, we are used to a particular way of working, a particular working setup. Having to virtualize that entire very large workforce setup, while being compliant to our client security policy, regulations of various home countries, has been again a massive undertaking. And I must commend the people that in our workforce as to how they have risen, as well as our clients who have been extremely cooperative in embracing this challenge to make sure that we continue to serve their consumers.
So from my perspective, the three sectors I'm mainly active in is the financial sector, where you're seeing yields have dropped, liquidity is under stress, and then there's all the personal and private and commercial debt and credit restrictions. So banks have been severely impacted. Another sector I'm in is oil and gas. We've seen so much volatility in the way price has gone up and down, the geopolitical instability around that sector. And the final sector is education, believe it or not. I'm actually a CIO of a university, and that is all up in the air with regards to what's going to happen. I think between all of those, the trend I've seen is everybody needs to take a much shorter term view and get things on the table now that are going to return value very quickly. That seems to be something like timescales have shrunk. And the other thing is everyone is looking for certainty. And that's where the data analytics, this push to get everything into the cloud has been just super accelerated. And so I think it's going to be a very interesting time as we come out into the next normal. And I'm sort of quite enthused for the technology audience as to the role they're going to play in that.
Abhishek, you want to chime in on this too? Yeah.
Well, we are in the business of sportswear, fashion, and retail. And clearly, sports is not happening. People are not stepping out. So fashion's not happening. And people are not consuming the products in retail. So sudden, I would say, something that we couldn't have ever imagined. I remember in February when we were chatting up, we all thought that for us, this is a supply problem because it's going to be China, right? So we all were thinking that, how do we cater to the challenges of supply getting disrupted? And it turns out that in 15 days, it became a demand problem across the world, right? So all across our stores have been closed in India, a lot of places in the world. In India, there is no e-commerce also happening. And what is actually challenging is that we are in an industry which employs a lot of people in retail, whether it's in e-commerce, people deliver, allied services like warehousing, factory, the entire value chain is human capital intensive that ways. And that means it impacts so many lives. And that means a lot of challenge for us to stay afloat, and ensure that the entire structure around our organization is protected for the short term. And that is the biggest challenge that we are facing right now. But we are also there with hope because, we believe sport is something which is extremely fundamental also to fitness and immunity in the world. Fashion brings a lot of feel good to someone wanting to come out of a depressing scenario. And of course, at some stage, we all know that we need to come out and go to retail, go back to where we were. So we're very hopeful. But at this stage, it is about staying afloat and taking care of everyone who is attached to our business.
That's great. You can show off your shirt too if you want. It's okay. It's it's fine because I think I see the Puma right there. But great. Thank you for sharing that too. Sarbvir, you want to go next?
Yeah, so we have a slightly contrasting story to I think what the other speakers have said. PolicyBazaar is sort of India's leading digital insurance company, and we are also one of the leading insurance actually distributors in India across all channels. So actually, from our perspective, the consumer demand has been really strong. I mean, consumers are more concerned about protecting themselves in terms of health insurance and life insurance. And this is a trend that we've been on throughout our history of the last 10 years, really promoting that the Indian middle class needs to have insurance to protect itself. So I think that trend and the fact that we believe people should buy digitally, both these trends have come together for us in this moment. Our biggest challenge for us was that we have a very large workforce of over 10,000 people, and these are mostly contact center agents, and these had to be made to work from home. And again, this is something we've been planning for a while to have some portion of our workforce work from home. But suddenly, in like 2 weeks, we had to move this whole channel in the middle of our busiest season. March is our busiest month of the year. So I think we are very lucky. Our technology teams and our operations teams were really worked very hard, literally 24/7 to make this happen. We were able to serve the consumers very well. We do face some challenges in terms of, there are a lot of physical processes like medicals, etc., which are required. And I think, again, our team has been able to innovate in using technology. So we are doing video medicals, we are doing some telemedicals. And I think by and large, in the last 45 days or so, we've been able to serve consumers and really, bring the power of our franchise to life, I would say.
That's great. And Ajay, you want to end this anchor for this question?
Sure. So, as you know, we are the largest producers of aluminium. We also have a sizable footprint on power. And both these are continuous industries. We cannot shut down the smelters. The cost of shutting down is very high. So what it has done to us, and it's also we are very linked with the global markets. As you know, the price of the product is determined by the London Metal Exchange. So one thing which has hit us really hard is the prices have dropped by almost 15%. On the other hand, the biggest challenge was the supply chain. Right from day one of business continuity to now building the resilience for the future, something that has kept us awake during the last 6 weeks or so. But I think what's interesting to see is that we are well past the first phase. We managed to, as an industry, to keep the factories running with support of the government and also of our vast business partners, employees, albeit at a very, let's say 30-40% levels of manning, which itself told us multiple things, how technology, we use drones for surveillance, sanitization, what a big industry needs to do, but at the same time act like a small entrepreneur. I think that's something I would leave with.
Well, that's great. And I actually want to come right back to you on the second question. But, what I think what I heard everyone say, and very uniquely, we live in uncertain times, and being nimble is not necessarily a want, it's a necessity. And I think understanding that, and really what I want to share, hopefully each of you can share, is what is the roadmap? I know we don't have answers. I think any of us want to say, hey, this is what I'm predicting. But I think you guys touch a little bit about like what you think needs to be done in your certain industries. If you can maybe highlight one or two things that you feel that this is the roadmap putting in, because I think you guys all said there's no such thing as a 5-year plan. It's about short-term thinking about how to get out of that. So Ajay, I'm going to go right back to you.
Sure. So, first things first, what happened has never happened before. So any bravery or any, sort of bravado will not help anyone. I will also not attempt that. It's something we never imagined, I can tell you. But I can tell you what happened is when Prime Minister came on the television and he was announcing the lockdown, immediately post-lockdown, I had about 30 people on a screen like this, all the leaders, and we were actually starting our first war room. That war room has transformed to a business transformation office now because you don't need to be in that mode. But it really helped to send the right signal. What we did was we said, let's look at the retooling of the entire business because it's not going to be the same. No matter what you expect when you come back, it will be a different word and it will need a little different way of, not little, a lot of different things. Second things remain positive. We asked ourselves, why waste a crisis? A good crisis also can teach you a lot. At a very high level, the message is while the prices have dropped, the demand has dropped, the supply side has also become a challenge, the cost has also dropped because a lot of commodities, the problem of my problem is also somebody else's problem who's selling to me. So if you're able to accelerate what you've been always wanting to do, and now you have time to do because all of us are locked in our houses. Believe me, the working hours have become more productive. The wastage of traveling to work and flying, you know, how many flying flights you should take per week has all gone away. So that has given us time to think. So I would say about five big things that we have really looked at. First is to retool the business. Second is new ways of working. And of course, I'm not getting into working from home. Everybody has been doing it. But see that how you can get to what the advantage of working from home is today when I call for a meeting, people are not taking time to prepare, you know, walk into a boardroom, get into presentations. I have not seen a single printed paper for the last 50 days. I have not signed a single paper in the last 50 days. It's never happened in my life. I mean, something I really find it so difficult to even imagine. The secretary sits in Delhi and I'm sitting in Bombay, and yet it's going smooth. So I think a new way of working. Second is a mindset issue. We have now started thinking like a 4 billion startup with a founder's mentality embedded into the team. Second is retain what we changed because we immediately formed cross-functional SWAT teams to address multiple supply chain issues, manufacturing issues, safety issues. We're not going to take it away. We're going to make it into a formal architecture, the way work should be done. Then the workforce safety, I think that's something we cannot take our eyes off. This is going to remain for a long time, as somebody rightly said. So we're using thermal cameras, we're using drones to do surveillance. Second is looking at the entire manufacturing. I would say the low cost, flexible digital in the post. We adopted few technologies. We have centers where we're using digital technology. Somewhere we have tied up with GE. Somewhere we're working with SAP and so on and so forth. Other way is to look at the entire supply chain redesign. You know, a lot of our commodities are coming from many parts of the world. China is also one of those. So we need to really be very smart in planning a new world where India perhaps will be much stronger force and should actually offer itself as a much stronger alternative. The second is supply chain plan now. This was immediately after the lockdown, where we looked at all our loopholes in supply chain, working with railways, working with ports, getting approvals from the central government, setting up war rooms and working alongside secretaries. Second is the phase where we are is to build a resilience. What can we do to now look at all our suppliers in tier 1 to tier 3? See that if a black swan event like a COVID happens again, who are our options, and keep those options in a much more dynamic way. The fourth element of our strategy is the customer engagement. I can tell you, I have met customers, and our key account management has come to a level where it was not there pre-COVID. And every day I engage with customers. I use digital technologies. I'm actually traveling every day, be it Israel, be it Nepal, be it UK. It's just a press of a button, and I'm there sitting with my colleagues there, or my suppliers. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity to connect. And finally, business transformation. It started with the war room, but war room has now become a transformational office. We have started looking at a new program. How many layers ought to be there in an organization? These are basics we wanted to address, but today is the time we are forced to, address and readdress such issues. So I would stop here. I know a lot of people want to say more things, but I think India's opportunity is here today. Government wants us to become the manufacturing back office of the world, besides being the service back office. I think I am very, very, very excited that it offers us an opportunity to position ourselves as a good alternative to China, and I will leave it at that.
Well said. And you were talking about you don't have a roadmap. That sure sounds like a roadmap to me. And I think I think India as a whole, and from my perspective, is ready to be more bolder and letting the rest of the world know exactly what you just laid out that people don't know just yet. So thanks for sharing that. I know that there was a lot of bits, and I'd love to see what the rest of the panel thinks too, because I think I'm going to pick a few of those as well. You want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I think, from our perspective, as I said, the two key things that we wanted to do, are something that this current crisis is going to, enhance. So we are really focused on making sure that we are sort of spending against this and being present in front of consumers, while this is taking place. The second thing that it's done for us is that as we look out, we are modifying processes and our systems to ensure that we can do more things without physical touch. And the third thing which has given us a chance is to really roll out this work from home concept to be closer to our consumers. And let me give you a specific example. For instance, we want to have a presence in the south, but earlier it would have meant a lot of fixed cost, an office, a cost in Chennai. Actually do multiple small places where we could have a workforce working from home and being closer to our consumers and not embracing that kind of fixed cost. So I think from our perspective, it's not really a huge change in what we were doing, but it's really an enhancement of what we were doing and to really sort of increase the scope of what our activities could be.
That's great,
Ryan.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think there are quite a few unintended benefits of this whole crisis, and like they say, we should not let a good crisis go waste. Picking up from everything that Ajay said, Sarbvir said, whether it is just necessity is the mother of invention, we are going to be forced to sharpen our cost structure and make sure that we are gearing up our cost structure across businesses, across industries for the long term. Second is that, just our day-to-day life has become far more efficient. You're not stuck in traffic and neither are you actually jumping onto flights or, going from one place to another just to make your sort of personal presence felt. Then there is the third thing, which is that I truly believe, and this is an area that I'm personally very passionate about, that there are at least a couple of large segments of the workforce which can come in. For example, women who had earlier not been able to take full-time roles at far off workplaces because of a bunch of other circumstances that they were subject to, or for that matter, people who are retired or close to retirement, with life expectancy the way it is, 55, 60 is no age to retire, and there is this massive pool of experienced workforce, that is going to be available, probably at a much cost structure, a better cost structure than in the past. And then lastly, just the impact that the environment and the climate has on each one of our businesses. We did not need a bigger and a more shocking, wake-up call than what we are facing today to see that it is not a crisis that's going to happen in our children's lifetime. This is a crisis that's going to happen in our lifetime, and it's going to impact our incomes and the ability to be able to put 2 square meals a day on our tables and those of our employees and our colleagues. There's no vaccine against climate change, for instance. So there are some of these unintended benefits, I think, which we definitely need to hold on to, whether they're internal to our families, internal to our companies, or for that matter, the large community that we.
Great. The lessons learned has to be able to execute on those. So, Robert, you want to go?
Yeah, so I think in a post-COVID world, the post-COVID roadmap is going to be far more tech-forward than maybe tech-following. And what I mean by that is a lot of business strategy is defined at the top table, and then IT or technology comes afterwards and enables or digitizes it. And what tends to happen is that's just a natural evolution of the way business has been done. And it's not truly innovative in any way. It's just merely improvement. And I think this COVID-19 experience has pushed technology further up the food chain, so that the future tech-forward business strategy will mean technology is at the forefront, helping define that cross-section between business objective and technology capability. And I think then you're going to see true innovation. So in a nutshell, I'd say the post-COVID roadmap will be far more tech-forward and innovative at the top table.
Add that, Rod. I think going back to the point that I made earlier, each industry will throw up different categories of organizations that emerge. And I think the roadmap, I suspect, for each of the three different segments will be quite different. So those who come out, out of this segment feeling relatively strong, on a stronger footing, I think they have got a brilliant opportunity not to waste the crisis, as Ajay and Aditya said, which is because they will be having an access to a much lower cost of capital regime and a much more favorable or encouraging, not favorable, but encouraging some of the regulatory regimes to really push forward. But I think it's important when they do that, they focus on two aspects. On one hand, look, we are about to witness an inflection on digital consumption of all products and services in a way that we had not predicted on any curve about even 3 months back, right? So how do you gear yourself up? And Ajay has said that in terms of how to engage with customers in a digital way, but how do you really gear yourself up for that? In terms of offering your products, all products and services, either in terms of engagement or consumption digitally. On the other hand, how do you focus much more on elasticity of cost, enterprise cost, which is through stronger digitization, better data infrastructure within your organization to increase that elasticity. On the second hand, I would say those who are coming out as a suspect in this crisis, it's time for them to be very, very prudent. Bring the hatchets down, cut down all discretionary spend, and take a thorough look at your underlying cost base. I mean, the likelihood is that you are carrying inefficiencies because you are too in a rapid growth mode and you have not looked at your underlying cost base, right? So to relook at that cost base and look at it fundamentally. And the last point I would add is, look, do not confuse contingent actions as long-term strategy. I agree with everybody. The work from home and elastic workplace has been taken up very well, right? But this is not quite enshrined as a way of working. In fact, Ajay said, yeah, this is not way of working yet. How do you then evolve it into a strategic way of working? Because I do worry that if we put the contingent action as an assumed strategy, we will see massive drops in engagement of people who have, once the high levels of energy of somehow managing the crisis start to keel over, they will need support on making this into a more strategic way of working.
Great. Abhishek, do you have anything you want to add to this too?
Well, I think, Ryan, the biggest, to me, the biggest roadmap is to be extremely nimble and flexible in business, not to be stuck to a roadmap. I think that's going to be critical. I think in leadership, in all our leaderships, as we go challenged for the next, we don't know, 6 months, 12 months, I think empathy is going to emerge as a very, very key element of leadership. And I think that is something that we all need to incorporate in our style of, functioning. Like people said, of course, health and safety is super critical. Adoption of digital. I strongly believe that companies whose businesses are at least 30 to 40% online and or have elements of the value chain which is integrated to technology will have a far better, prognosis going forward. I also think that irrespective of the business, irrespective of the category, customers are going to behave in a certain way and the trends are going to change. So businesses have to completely follow how customer trends are changing and make their decisions and changes and incorporate that in their operating procedures or strategies.
Well, that's great. I'm going to do something real quick because I know we got 5 minutes, but you started something which I don't know if you knew this or not, but I was going to ask a question. During certain times, leaders need to blank, blank, blank. I want everyone to give me either one word or one sentence. Don't give me 2 sentences. Don't give me a paragraph. Just either one word or not. And I'm assuming your answer is empathy. Is that right?
Yeah. For me,
Okay.
yes.
Yes. Who wants? Aditya, you want to start?
I think for me it is you have to have a microscope in one eye and you've got to have a telescope in other eye. So that's what kind of always kind of comes back to me.
All right. Next. Who wants it?
So I could go there. I had a 4C approach. First, foremost, remain calm, because what happens is you really go crazy. So remain calm, collaborate, cooperate, communicate. And of course, empathy is a big part of the whole game.
Love it.
Better for the better C, which is not coming to my mind. There was a 5th C rather. But empathy is very, very, very critical.
I think
I put everybody on the spot. Hopefully the audience knows. So this is what we're getting. All right, let's go. Keep going.
I would say manage paradoxes carefully and trust your people.
Yeah, I think what we found is that you've got to look beyond the obvious, and I think communicate very clearly and honestly. I think the employees are capable of handling a lot more than sometimes what leaders do.
So 1 word, 4 letters, care. You need to be confident, you need to be action orientated, be reliable, and be high energy. If you do that, you'll be great in a crisis.
Love it. Awareness is so key. And another one I'm going to do a rapid fire because you guys actually did pretty well on this. What tech trend? Here we go. Everyone's going to be listening now. Watch this. What tech trend are you looking at? And I'm going to hold you only to 1 or 2 things. I know you're going to say everything, but you can't. You just got 1 or 2 things. Who wants to start?
Integrating offline and online experiences through technology.
Yeah, I think for us,
You say that.
yeah, I think for us it's really mass customization. Using sort of data science and artificial intelligence to bring customization at a very micro level. I think that's really the key thing that we are really excited about and really working on as well.
I would say the one that I've been watching quite heavily is the adoption of cloud and with that the adoption of data and AI.
So I would go even further. I'd say quantum, purely because I want to be able to teach myself something that I have to unlearn first. And that's going to be a real challenge.
I think for the businesses that I'm involved in, it's kind of getting deep consumer insight, being able to deliver on what your product or service is at a lower cost. So whatever it takes, really.
Yeah. For me, it would be artificial intelligence and, of course, secured collaboration platforms. These are the 2 things very critical.
Ryan, just a lighter note. Benefit. I'm saying if my sample size of my teenage daughter has anything to do with it, you've got a lot of pent-up demand coming your way, mate.
Forward to that.
Already making deals among everybody. Like, this is crazy. Like, we got travel, we got minerals, we got insurance, we got everything on this call. I mean, you don't need to shop anywhere. Just come right here. But I know we're running out of time. And I do, one thing I wanted to add to that conversation, which I didn't hear from anyone, or maybe it was cybersecurity, was one of the things I'm interested in seeing on the trend side, on that end. But we've got 1 more minute, and I do want to thank you all, each and every one of you on the panel. The fact that you guys shared your candor and your honesty about each of the industries, that shows true leadership. Because transparency in times like this, for everyone to listen, it's time for us to all get better, to learn from we've never seen anything like this, and togetherness, we can help not just each other, but around the community, around the world. And I do appreciate each of you kind of coming on this call and sharing those insights with hopefully some fun, and hopefully the audience had a great laugh at the same time. So thank you to you all.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Ryan.
Ryan, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.